Welcome. I'm so excited to present a short asana practice where we focus on 3 of the 5 acts or functions of Paramashiva. The 3 are creation, sustenance, and dissolution. And really what we're looking at then is the cycle from the end of one thing to the beginning of the next, to how that is sustained until it dissolves again into the next. So what we're after in our asana practice is to recognize. The reason we even study the 5 acts or functions of Paramashiva is to recognize that while we're basically saying this is something that happens on a very high level, this is, kind of beyond us. It's also what we're playing out in every given moment. And we know this to a certain extent. We create a pose, we sustain it, we dissolve it so we can create the next. One breath leads to the next. One thought needs to dissolve in order for us to entertain the next. And yet when we typically look at that cycle, it often feels as if we are looking at something being created, sustained, and destroyed. We're seeing the process, it arising outside of ourselves. Whereas the Tantra, and hopefully by the end of the practice, will be invited to notice that we are in and of itself that which is creating, sustaining, and dissolving. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths into your body. And as you turn to your breath, very commonly, it's like, oh wow, there's my breath. Look at it move. Watch it come in and watch it go out, as if it was something separate. And from where we tend to hold our awareness, that would be true. We're looking towards the breath, where the breath is being generated from a deeper awareness. So what it takes is that shift to where we are seeing from our deeper awareness to how we are creating the breath. Let's begin by chanting together. We'll chant 3 ohms, move through our invocation 3 times. Notice how with each recitation of the chant, you move through the cycle. Full breath in for Om. Satchitanandamurtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchitanandamurtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchitanandamurtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om. Okay. We're going to start with our 2 blocks. 2 blocks and a blanket is all you'll need for this. We're going to start in a supported back bend. We'll use the first block middle height, lengthwise for behind the ribbed part of the spine. And we'll start with our second block on its highest height for behind our head. So you come to sit. You have to find your way here. Ideally, it would be rounded. So give yourself a moment, especially since we're beginning with this, to create this pose, right? To find the shape. Yet using this supported posture, part of what we're after is to start with this in a supported position and then end with it in an active one, to circle back around. So feel free to even press your feet, lift your hips, and find that you can flow from the ribbed spine being supported down to the depth of the seat, sitting bones, so that there doesn't feel like you kind of drop off that edge, that you instead flow off of, round off of, curl off of. And maybe your chin tucks a little bit to find that, but then eventually invite your chin to lift a little bit and pause and breathe. Any release of shoulders and elbows. Excuse the New York City sirens. There's multiple layers of things being created, sustained, and dissolved. They will eventually dissolve, I hope. And then a few more breaths here. If you wanted to try going down one level, you could. In the same way you come off and you keep reaching to the depth of your sitting bones, finding an invitation to deepen your hip creases here. Find the same as you take your throat off. And you're not falling into the front of your chin and throat. You're pressing the head, smoothing your forehead. And then last stage, even move the block by cupping one hand behind your head. We'll do this with 2 hands. So as you cup, don't have your elbows wide, pick them up to the ceiling like you're going to hang them from the ceiling, and really do lift. But at the same time you lift your elbows, pull your shoulder blades down, almost like you're going to pinch the block. So you feel like your shoulders and really truly your armpits have a depth to them. They're slightly behind you. And then you could give a little bit of the weight of your head to your hands. Again, keep hollowing your abdomen. Keep reaching to the depth of your groin. 1 or 2 breaths here to settle. You don't want your armpits to pop up or your elbows to wing out. You want to keep the depth of the armpit as we lay the head back. Last breath. Right, and that's quite deep. So notice the shape you created. And to dissolve it, let's take our time. So go ahead, release one hand and roll to your side. Roll to your side so you even just pause for a moment on your elbow, on the push of your hand. Really let that last shape dissolve. And then moving your props. Come all the way up to downward facing dog. Knees come to the mat. Lengthen your stance and hips rise up and back. And pedal a little bit between through your feet, lifting your hip creases very high after that last pose for lengthen your spine. And sometimes it's just coming to the same pose and seeing that there might be something slightly new here for you, something else to come to envision and come to be then how Paramashiva, how consciousness itself creates in the world. You are its instrument. You are a vehicle for that. So let's try this. Bend your knees, press your toes down, and not the pinky toes only where you fall to the outer arches. Press the big toes wide to your pinky toes, really lifting up through the front of your leg. Kneecaps rise high, hip creases rise high, and then start to weigh your heels down without dropping the lift you created along the front line of your leg. Lift your underarms in a similar way and stretch downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your right leg high, step your right foot forward between your hands, and push down and come up, high lunge. Take a moment, feel the balance that it is. Again, go from big toes wide to pinky toes, and especially on your back foot, you have that sink placement where you're using more the front of the foot. Let it help you pull up high through the top of the thigh in a way that might even pitch your torso forward because you're lining yourself up more with the back leg than the front. And then start to tease that out. Bend your front knee more. Keep the front of your foot gas pedaling until you look for that anchor of your heel, which might allow your low back and belly to pick up and out. Notice how you start to create the pose and sustain the pose. Inhale, reach your arms up. Bend your elbows out to the side for cactus. And then even look side to side. So here comes your balance. Keep your big toe very heavy. Side to side with your gaze. And then even, can you look to one, and don't let your elbow fall forward because your throat and arm will fall forward too. Pitch your hand back, your wrist back like you just caught a ball. And again, stretch through your legs, catch that ball. And then go the other side. Throw the ball. You just caught a ball, so you throw your wrist back, you take your armpit back. Good. And then as you come up, re-stretch and see if that can help position your armpits behind you. Now again, stretch through your legs. Lift that back thigh. Pull your right sitting bone back and extend. Breathe. And then dissolve the pose. Downward facing dog. Inhale, forward plank pose. Any variations through chaturanga and back bend. Particularly feeling here that lift up the front line of your leg. You shouldn't mean you have to drop your seat. Stay active in the sitting bones. Create the pose. Downward facing dog, hips up and back. Lift your left leg high. Step it through your hands. Again, give yourself a moment to find your balance. Use the press from big toe to pinky toe on your back foot. It'll lift your inner thigh. It'll help you lift your outer hip. You lift up, creating a strong, smooth rise, even of kneecap and deep quads. And then you got to tease out your front leg so you can find the bend. You can find the extension of your pelvis without the back thigh dropping. Inhale, reach your arms up. Notice on your front foot, big toe mound, wide to pinky toe mound. Bend your elbows out to the side. Turn and look to wrist. Turn and look to wrist. And then as you turn to look to the wrist, pitch the palm back. Pitch the wrist back. Try the other side. And just notice in your legs, notice in the balance. Pitch the wrist back, pitch it back. You've already woken up a lot to be able to create this. Stretch your arms. Stretch from your legs. Lift the low back and belly because you have this really active leg to lift and support. Armpits stay back as the head finds that backward position. Inhale up and out. Downward facing dog. Inhale, forward plank pose. Again, your variation through. Seeing if you can find, especially an upward dog, but even if your pelvis is down, let it pull forward through the front of the legs. Rise out of your low back and belly. Keep your seat working. Use your fingertips. Downward facing dog. Lift your left leg high. Let's go left leg forward this time first. Come to side angle pose. Back heel down. Hand to your hip. We're going to take the elbow behind the head here, just like we did when we were on the block. So you take your arm up, bend your elbow. Again, it's not your elbow you're trying to pull back. You take your elbow like it's going to be an earmuff. And pause and soften. Notice what you have to actually let go of from a previous moment to get under this one, to get into this one, to get the push on your feet. Slide your armpit back. Feel it deepen. Now it's like you're pitching the ball into the armpit space. Make sure you can extend onto your legs, lifting your low back and belly up, and then let your head, which could be quite heavy, if it didn't have this creative support from belly and back lifting, from armpit deep, slide it back. Breathe. Don't let it be so heavy your armpit falls forward, collapses forward. Last breath. Maybe even you stretch your arm down and you lean back. See what you'd like. Push down, come up, warrior two. Pause and soften here. Push through your feet. The last pose dissolves, this one arises. Stretch your front leg towards straight. Right hand to your outer hip where you're still on your thigh, and if you push, there'd be movement in, and you lift your inner thigh up to that push of your right hand. Left arm lifts, bend your elbow here. So stretch through your legs, and particularly using your right hand to engage your right inner thigh up. Imagine that same thing. So you created on your front leg that same tension of outer hip and inner thigh towards each other. So you stretch through your legs. Again, inner, low belly and low back lift from that broadening of the inner thighs and outer hip hug. Top armpit, slide it back. And then again, lean back and take your time. You can stretch up to your elbow, but don't let your armpit fall forward. Keep it deeply set. One more breath. Inhale, warrior two once more. Virabhadrasana 2. Feel the warrior quality. To have the awareness deepen to where you know yourself to be that power that creates, sustains, and dissolves, the propeller of the cycle. Exhale, hands to the mat, back heel spins up, step forward. Forward fold. Lean a little forward so you press your toe mounds down and lift up from the deep, deep front line of your body as if you had to slip a piece of paper way, way, way up in your hip creases. Breathe into that and then still look for a little push of your heels. Fold. Inhale to lengthen. Left leg back. Side angle pose. Elbow to your knee. Hand to your hip. Take a moment. Press through your feet. Invite yourself to create it anew. Of course, we build on previous cycles. That way we have an upward path, but we recognize we come anew. Top elbow behind, lifts up, hand behind your head. Narrow your elbow, slide your armpit back. Make sure that's connected to the push of your legs and the lift of your low back and belly. So you are creating and able to sustain this as you press the weight of your head slightly back to your hand. And allow the two sides to be different. It's a lot to get this stretch from, in many ways, your mid-back, even the back of your pelvis, all up to your underarm. Armpit stays deep, 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 deep. Maybe you go a little farther. Maybe you stay where you are. And then push down, warrior two. Let it shift and adjust. Stretch your front leg towards straight. Hand to your outer hip. Give a little inward push. You're not forcing anything. In many ways, you're revealing how much you want to create the lift of the inner thigh so you can stretch through your legs, create it on your front leg as well. As you extend down, look for and wait for that which creates and arises through your spine. Top hand reaches back. Again, armpit deep first. There is always the potential you could do too much of this, but probably not in this position. So go for it, armpit deep, and slide the throw back, and notice how the arm has to feel this out, how to sustain this. So don't just have it be your arm versus your head. Feel your whole body create and sustain the pose. Breathe into it. Armpit deep, throat back. Eyes soft, forehead smooth. Warrior two. Inhale. Extend through. Exhale, hands to the mat. Come again, back heel up, step to the front. Fold. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. One round through Surya Namaskar. Push through your feet. Inhale, rise up, arms up overhead. Maybe even a slight back bend here. So throat goes back, but can you keep your armpits behind your throat? And can you get the lift out of your legs? Inhale, high. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lengthen. Feel free to bend knees or even lengthen your stance so you can bring your hands down and you have the invitation to get that lift way up to your hip creases. Lift your front legs strongly. Pushing through your hand step or hop back plank. Down through chaturanga variations and back bend. We meet in downward facing dog, hips up and back. And if you wanted to do a few rounds for Surya Namaskar, you'd be welcome to pause and do so. Then take 3 or 5 long breaths in your downward dog. Lifting strongly up through your front, still giving weight to the heels so your hamstrings are active in the process. Bring your knees to the mat. Spread a blanket across the front of your the middle of your mat for your knees. Let's start with, let's go right leg forward this time. Go ahead, and as you step it forward, invite your hips to slide forward. And yet there's so much to play with. Back toes tucked. There always is, right? So much to play with. You press the front of the feet, inner legs. Feel the broadening to the sitting bone, the narrowing that we help create. And the last round, stretch your arms up. Bend your elbows to your sides. Soften wrists back. Catch the ball. Let it help you keep the arm bone back. And wait. Wait for it. Wait till you can feel the effort of your legs, the extension to lift your low back and belly up and shoot your arms. Inhale high. Exhale as you bring your hands down. You could also grab blocks if you'd like. We'll shoot our right leg forward, coming off onto the heel side. And take a moment, even turn your toes in a little. And as you have then the inner edge of your Achilles, work to engage the quads all the way up to that depth. Turn the toes out, try the same thing. From the outer heel more, work to engage the quads all the way to the outer hip. And find the center. Really let the Achilles line clarify also that sitting bone. There's so many ways for us to get underneath that separateness, to feel out how we are the vehicle and we are also that impetus to create each cycle. Pull a little farther into the pose. You could walk your back knee back, stretch your front leg forward, but use that Achilles line, broaden to the bones from the inner legs out, hug to the bones, outer legs in, and then shoot. Shoot strongly, keeping the quads drawing up as if into the depth of your hip crease. Breathe. And inhale. Bring your right leg back. Pause for a moment, hands and knees. Maybe a little cat-cow. Left foot steps forward. Anjaneyasana, back toes tucked. Hips slide a little forward. Take your time, feel it out. Arms up and into cactus. Again, palms back. That helps take the head of the arm bone slightly back, not the shoulder blade, because we could take our shoulder blades around behind us and leave the head of the arm bone forward. We want to get underneath. We don't want to be chasing the cycles. We want to know the depth of awareness to which we are actually truly the ones creating, sustaining, and dissolving. As you're ready, take the time as you start to move towards it. Stretch through your legs till your low back and belly support the reach. Inhale high. As you release your hands to the block or mat, go ahead, stretch your front leg straight. Inner edge, engage your quads. Outer edge, engage your quads. The heel stays heavy. And then Achilles line. And as you find the Achilles, broad and inner edge, hug outer hip. Find that you can then shoot straight through. Take your time with it. Invite the engagement of the deep front of the quads. And then inhale to bring your left leg again back on the mat. And a little cat-cow. In a moment, child's pose. Let it rest. See if you can dissolve whatever felt tense, whatever ways you felt separate from and trying to approach the asanas. Soften here to recognize how you are the very initiator. Life's force to propel, to move through, to release so that you can begin fresh. Good. Inhale and come up. Please transfer onto your back. So flip your knees up, scoot your butt to your heels, come to lay. Grabbing the two sides of the mat, take a moment and curl your outer arm bones down towards the mat. And again, you can overdo the drawing around behind you. So notice how it's also about when you have your thumbs on top and your fingers on bottom, you can stretch like you're going to take the mat out from under your feet. And that invites it to be about the whole arm and the triceps engagement. So find the space in your neck. Find that invitation to lift your chest and then pick up your hips. Take a moment. Can you use the front of your feet a little bit more? Can you really engage your quads? Let your quads be what pick your hips up. And then can you weigh down into both of your heels? Find that which is going to help you sustain now that you've created the shape. Breathe into it. Let your pelvis pick up high, but also from the press of your head, shoot out to your heart, shoot out to your hips, shoot out to your feet. Exhale and release. Roll to your right side and push down and come up. We're going to come to the side seat. So as you come up, keep your legs wide, your knees apart. As you come to sit, this back foot, you pull it to your outer butt and you're going to turn it so you're on the top of the foot, shoelaces down. As if the sole of the foot faces up, and you can squeeze a little there. And it's an asymmetrical seat. Your left sitting bone should not be down, or don't force it down, right? See if you can find instead the use of the mat, the work of the left leg to create a descent there, but ultimately to find the rise. Left hand to the left side. So now we're going to even test that. Don't collapse, even though your left side is going to get shorter. Continue to push down and rise up. Top arm, hand behind your head, same thing. Don't let your elbow fall behind you. Earmuff it. Bring it in, armpit back, and then lay your head back. And stay with this. Breathe into it. Feel it out. You can bend a little further, letting your left elbow bend, your left side curl, but not drop into your left hip. Rise up and out through your low back and belly. Armpit deep, throat back. Good. Inhale and come up. Come up to sit. We go to side two, spinning our legs the other way. Foot towards the outer butt, and you really wrap to the top of the foot. Press it down, spread your toes. Activate here so you don't collapse. You work the leg, and there's a descent to the sitting bone, but ultimately you're looking for the realization, the recognition that you're rising out of there. Left arm, hand behind the head. Narrow your elbow, deepen your armpit behind you so you can take the throat back. And the two sides can be very different. Be easy with it. Your left side is going to curl. You're going to allow that, but you're not collapsing. Use your legs. Rise out of your low back and belly. Breathe deep. Armpit back to take your throat back. Curl. Soften your eyes. Your forehead scrunching will not get you in deeper. You'll feel separate from. Good. Push down and inhale. Come up. Again, spin your knees to the ceiling. Lay on your back. So now you have the option of bridge again, or now finding your way up to wheel. You also wanted to take a little pause. You could go to the wall, practice a handstand. It's a great way to practice the same work we've been doing of working the armpits to the back body. But even if you plan to do bridge, place your hands for wheel as best you can, so we can at least invite and sense this discovery. So you have the armpits, the elbows lifting to the ceiling like we began, but you descend your armpits. It's okay if your elbows widen a little as you come up, as long as you grip your fingertips and you keep your armpits deep. So start with hips up, pause, work your hamstrings, but work your quads like we've been doing to pick your hips way up. You don't want that to collapse you into your neck, so kick your heels down, push your hands, and see if you can find your way up. Now we create our own obstacles. That's the highest teaching of this. So sometimes we get some pose and we're like, wait, I don't feel what I usually feel, and we'll find a way to create it. So it's also possible you find a way to create a different path into this pose. Work your quads, pick your hips up from them. It's not a collapse of your hamstrings though. Kick your heels down. Feel your seat also active. Last breath. And come out the way you came in. Chin in, back. Starts to release, pause, and soften. And it turns a little side to side, a little of the no. Eventually let your feet come off the floor and just rock your hips a little side to side, inviting the abdomen to settle, the bottom ribs to settle, creeping your knees in a little closer. Go ahead and bring right ankle across left knee, Sukhi Dhanurasana. At first, reach all the way around to the front of your left shin. So it's almost like the goal was to get your left heel to your left butt. And what that means is you had to reach a little farther because you're not just getting behind your thigh, you're reaching all the way to the front of your shin. So let it give you a little traction to your arms. Invite your neck to feel a little longer out from the shoulders. And then activate your feet. Really pull your right butt down as if to spin your right knee more towards the ceiling. You could bring your hands behind the thigh and even stretch your heel up. You could bend and bring this all in a little bit closer, but keep the pull of the right and the left butts down so it stays active. You could go for baby cradle variation. And then however far you went, make sure you come out the same way we came in. Let it dissolve by pushing ankle onto the outer ankle to your left leg and switch sides. First, right toes point down and you reach to the front of your right shin. Heel towards butt. Again, let it give a little traction. Feel that out in the hands. You could even switch the interlace. Your other thumbs on top, other pinkies on bottom. See if that gives a slightly different felt sense, pathway. Something new could arise. We just recognize how we are the initiator of that. We are also the sustainer. We're also the one that turns our attention away from something for it to dissolve. Stretch it any way you'd like in these last few moments, but really work on pulling your left and right butt to the floor, trying to spin your left knee and toes up. You could take it farther if you'd like. Come out the way you came in, pressing outer left ankle to the right leg. Take your hands to the tops of your thighs. Give a little press as the feet return to the mat. Notice after that deeper back bend, that joy to lengthen your low belly, kind of scoop your belly down to the front of your spine, the length of your back. Soles of your feet together, knees wide. You can press the tops of your thighs here as well. And as you press, same thing, scoop your belly actually down into the body to find the front of your spine. Invite that length through the low back and belly to recharge. We'll ultimately come underneath the idea that it arises separate from us. It arises through our very awareness. You're welcome to stay in this pose for a few more breaths. Press the pinky edge down to the floor. At any point, feel free to also stretch the body long and release into Shavasana. Make little adjustments until at some point you're invited to come underneath all the awareness that locates you in the body. You surrender those. What begins with you. what maintains, what is sustained, does so through you. And what dissolves, what is let go, is done through you. If you'd like to pause and take a longer Shavasana, be very welcome to do so beyond the length of this video. It's time for you to move on as well. Draw your knees up into your chest. Curl in, maybe even grabbing your feet and inviting eyes and knees towards each other. Rolling to one side, find your way up to sit. Sit comfortably for a moment. Invite your attention to turn inwards. The movement of the breath, the movement of the mind, the life force as it courses through this form. It begins with you and it ends with you. Come to the you, that deep awareness of essence. Deepening your breath. Bring your hands to your heart. The beauty of the cycle, to what is that circular path of creating, sustaining, dissolving, brings us back to ourselves again and again. Take your head towards your own heart. Namaste. Thank you for being with me today.